Well, hi friends, welcome back to Coffee Tasting with Coffee Mania. As always, my name is Mandy and I am your guide for tasting all the coffee today. I hope you've had a chance to cup the first couple of sets that we've done. If you haven't, make sure you go ahead and click the link below so you can make sure that you get your cupping kit and figure out what cupping is all about and start with the first one because that's really the best one to start with. I dive into tasting all the coffee a little bit more in that first video. So make sure you do that first. If you have already cupped sample sets number 1 and 2, we are on to number 3 today, and we're so excited to share these 2 coffees with you. As always, we are tasting these blindly, so we will taste them without knowing what they are until the very end. We'll taste without bias, hopefully, or at least you will, because I actually do know the coffees. So we'll taste them, and then at the end, we will discuss what they are and give you an idea so you know if you really loved the coffee, you know which coffees to buy now. And if you really didn't love the coffee, which happens sometimes, then you can be informed about which coffees you might want to avoid in the future. I know that's been helpful for me, knowing more of which ones I like and which ones I don't. When I go visit even other coffee shops, I typically know certain origins that coffee comes from that I don't always love as much, the flavor profile. And so I know to try something different in that case. Although I do say it's always good to still try it every once in a while and see sometimes different roasts and different farms and processing methods and things like that can all influence the flavor of the cup. And so sometimes even the same country might it will have a lot of different flavor profiles. So it's not a guarantee that if you don't love Colombian, you're never going to love a Colombian cup of coffee. That's just not true. But it's a generalization for coffees that you might tend to enjoy. So that being said, let's just go over cupping protocol really quick, just as a reminder. So hopefully you haven't eaten anything anytime recently or brushed your teeth. We don't want any really strong flavors in our mouths to compete with the flavors that are in the coffees. Hopefully you're not wearing any strong perfumes or lotions or anything, because also that's going to compete with what we're smelling, and we don't want that either. And hopefully you have just a nice quiet area that you can enjoy the ritual of tasting coffee. This is supposed to be a fun experience, something that you can just kind of sit down and enjoy. Again, there's no right or wrong answers. It's really what your experience brings to the table. So what you have traditionally been tasting or smelling or things like that are going to be the things that you are going to taste and write down and come up with as you are tasting the coffee. So no pressure. This isn't graded. This is just for fun. So have fun with it and enjoy, and make sure you have time to really savor the experience. Hopefully you have a pen to write with and your lovely little tasting note sheet that you can write down everything that you can think of. And if you have one word on there, that's fine too. Whatever works for you. Again, this is your time. The original cupping box came with one of these little cupping experience and common terms explained on the back of that. That's going to be helpful just in case, because I won't explain it in detail every time. So if you need a refresher on what certain things like fragrance actually means and what you're looking for to describe, that will be helpful for you. And as always, we love to use this flavor wheel that we have. There are other ones out there, but this one we created just for us. So that's really fun. And that will just help you put words to things that you're smelling that you are struggling and actually coming up with the word or the term. It's not comprehensive. I think you know this by now, but it is a helpful starting point, a good jumping off point. So make sure you have your cups in your correct bowls. The samples are labeled 1 and 2, so make sure they go in cups 1 and 2. And have a bowl or mug or anything that you have that can be a vessel for dumping any of the grounds into that after we skim the coffee, we'll go ahead and throw it in there. And last but not least, make sure you have a rinse bowl or cup or mug or whatever with your tasting spoon, trusty Coffee Mania tasting spoon, and preferably another spoon of some sort, maybe a soup spoon or something like that, that will help you skim the coffee. All right, I think we are ready to jump in. I hope you're excited. All right, so you know the drill. For this first part, we're just going to pick up the coffee, smell it, inhale fast, try and get all of the aromas that the coffee has to offer right into your nose and even into your mouth, because the back of the throat, if you can get it all up into your nose and through the back, that really helps get the full experience of what we're smelling. I can go back and forth because once you smell one, you're going to want to go to the other one and keep going back and forth so that you can start seeing the differences between the two. And don't worry about what you can write down. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes things come really fast, and sometimes it just takes a while and you're struggling to come up with words. I know that's true for me. So just go back and forth, enjoy this process, and smell as much as you can. And in the fragrance dry section, that's where we're going to be writing for both numbers 1 and 2. And we'll just do that for a while. Enjoy this process. All right, hopefully you've had enough time to kind of go back and forth, smell what you can. After a while, you kind of get nose fatigue. Just as a reminder, I think I mentioned this in one of my last videos. If I didn't, I'm sorry, but one thing that can help in kind of neutralizing the smell or resetting what you're smelling is to just smell your skin. As long as you don't have tons of, scented anything on you, that usually helps, or your clothing, again, as long as it's not scented really strongly with laundry detergent, that usually helps. It's a kind of neutral smell as you're going back and forth that can kind of help reset. So just like smell your skin. Yeah, and sometimes you get a little something new, sometimes you don't, and that's okay too, but it is a helpful refresher. After a while, there's only so much you can get, especially in the dry section, so don't worry about trying to get like every nuance. It's going to keep changing too as we brew the coffee and then as we taste it. And tasting is really the part that we want to get to, because that's the part that we're actually enjoying, and that's the part that we're going to be paying attention to for future coffees that we might want or try and taste. So go ahead and take as long as you need on this part, but don't kill yourself in trying to come up with everything. Once you are ready, you can pause me for as long as you need, but once you're ready, we're gonna go ahead and set our water boiling so we can get that ready to brew the coffee and move on to that next part. So I'm gonna go get my water. I'll be right back. All right, now that we have our water ready to go, again, make sure that if you boil your water, you let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then it's perfect temperature to brew the coffee with. We like it around 200 degrees. So make sure you have a timer ready to go also, so that we're gonna count. You can either count down, you can set it for 4 minutes, and that's when we're gonna break the coffee, or you can just let the stopwatch go, and when it hits 4 minutes, break it. When it hits 10 minutes, we're good to taste. Because what we really wanna do is after 4 minutes, it's brewed, and we don't wanna keep brewing it as much as possible. But at 10 minutes, it's usually a good temperature to start drinking it. So if I don't set a timer for that, I usually forget what time it is, and I either start drinking it too early or I start tasting it too late, and I want to hit that sweet spot where it's not too hot to burn my tongue, but also still hot enough that I'm getting the full flavor profile and able to keep drinking it as it cools. So we're going to go ahead and start brewing. Just make sure that you do it nice and slowly and evenly. And make sure that you are getting all the grounds covered. We're gonna fill it right to the top, and it's good to go. Make sure you do that for both of them. You don't have to have a gooseneck kettle. It does help sometimes, but as long as you can pour nice and slowly, that's all you really need. So I've got my timer set, my coffee going. So now we want to smell it while it's brewing. So get your nose right down in there next to it. You might get a little of the coffee on your nose. That's okay. It happens to me almost every time because I like to get my nose right down there. And at this point, we're gonna write down anything that we're smelling under the aroma and the wet section before the break. And then we'll do after the break once we break the coffee. And go back and forth as much as you need to kind of start smelling both of them and really get the full experience. All right, at this point, it's been 4 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and break the crust. We can still smell it at this point because we're not going to taste it quite yet. But again, make sure when you're actually breaking the crust, and what we're doing here is, again, just slowly pushing the grounds back a little bit, giving it a slight little stir. We want to make sure that the grounds on the top kind of just settle to the bottom. So when you do that, just get your nose right down there next to it, so any aromas that have been trapped by the crust on the top can really release and give you all the information that you need for this coffee. And again, making sure to rinse your spoon in between coffees. We don't want to cross-contaminate. And also making sure that you're writing down anything new that you're getting here. Try not to stir or scoop. We just want to be gentle with this so that we don't disturb any grounds as they settle. And at this point, you can write down anything you're coming up with in the section under aroma after break. You might be getting a lot of the same things, and sometimes you might be getting some new things that you haven't smelled yet. Sometimes it's always amazing to me how much it can change. Sometimes it stays consistent and the dry smells like the wet, smells like after break, and then it tastes like that, which is amazing when that happens. But oftentimes you'll get a lot of different things throughout the whole process, and what it smells like when it's dry might not be what it smells like when it's wet, and then it might taste even more different, or it might taste like what it smelled like dry. You just never know with coffee. So this is a fun experiment to see what the coffee is going to do. And sometimes it's just our nose. My nose doesn't always smell exactly what is in there, so I just smell what I can and write what I can and enjoy. All right, at this point, it's been about 10 minutes for me. I sped up the video in certain sections, so if you still need some more time, that's okay. You can go ahead and pause me, take as much time as you need. What we're gonna do now is skim any foam, any grounds that kind of are still resting on the top. We're just gonna gently skim them off into our extra cup that we have so that we make sure that we're eating as little coffee as possible. That's really what we're trying to do. But you will probably still eat a little bit. That's okay. It won't hurt you, I promise. So as a reminder, take the 2 spoons and put them back to back. Start away from you on the outer edge and kind of just on the very top, just skim the coffee. Separate the spoons as you're going. Skim any grounds that are on top and bring them back together to capture all of those grounds. Oh, that one was pretty good. I got it in mostly 1 scoop. I'm just gonna skim just a little bit more. Rinse off in between. Try and leave as much coffee as possible in there. We wanna taste all the coffee that we can. And then do it with the other one too. This one I made a little bit messier. There's a little bit more grounds on the top. That's okay though. Perfect. All right. The coffee is now ready to be tasted, so we can slurp it whenever you're ready. And then write down anything that you can come up with in flavor. We'll just go back and forth a little bit, try and do a few rounds of flavor notes, and then we can start focusing on the rest of it. I always find it's easier to start with one thing rather than try and think of all the things at the same time. What is the flavor and what is the acidity and what is the body? That's a lot for your brain to try and focus on. So if you focus on one thing at a time and write down what you can think and then taste it again with only acidity in mind or only body in mind, that really helps kind of capture what you're trying to look for. So again, no manners. We don't have manners here. So slurp your coffee and try and hold it in the back of your throat just for a second before you swallow it, just because the nose is really doing the most of the work for tasting. That's why when you have a cold, you can't really taste. It's because your nose is all blocked up, and tasting comes from smelling most often. So if we can hold it in the back of our throat, it allows our nose to kind of get the full experience as well as it goes up into our nasal cavity. The smell, not the actual coffee. You don't want to snort your coffee. That would not be comfortable. But hold it for just a second before you swallow it, just so that you can get the full experience. We want to slurp our coffee so it aspirates across all of our mouth, all of our taste buds to get the full experience. Try not to choke, but if you do, that's okay too. That happens to me sometimes. Always remember to rinse off, but go back and forth as much as you need to and write down what you can think. Right, make sure you're going back and forth. Write down any flavors that you can get. If you need to take a sip of water in between, that's always helpful too. It kind of helps cleanse a little bit of the palate, not quite. Or you can eat like a saltine cracker if you have one around, or something bland to kind of help go cleanse the palate in between. Otherwise, just keep going back and forth and tasting what you can. I know sometimes for me, one is easier than the other, and that's okay too. You can just write, I like it or I don't like it too. That is a step in the right direction. If you can start to distinguish between the two and articulate when you like one above the other one, that's also helpful. Even if you don't have the terms to explain it, it still helps you in understanding what you like and don't like. So make sure you're writing down anything that you can for flavor, and then go ahead and taste it and think about the aftertaste. Does it linger? Is it short-lived? Does it have a specific flavor that sticks around longer than other ones? It doesn't have to be anything specific. This one is usually one of the harder ones for me to articulate, but go ahead and write down whatever you can come up with. And once you've written that down, then you can taste them both and think about the acidity. Does it make your mouth pucker? Is it a higher, almost sour acidity, or is it lower? Is it more neutral in the acidity feeling of it? And then lastly, taste that and see what the body feels like to you. And again, this one is just the mouth feel in your mouth. So does it feel heavier, like a cream, like a heavy cream, or maybe it feels more in the middle, like a 2% milk or something like that? Maybe it could feel more like a tea or water even, or juice. It can be anything. So go ahead and just mark it. If you have something specific that you're like, this is like heavy cream or this is like tea, you can go ahead and write that down, but I've made it simple too, so you can just mark whether it's low, medium, or high, or somewhere in between too. That just kind of helps you have a basis for what you're tasting and feeling and what you like and don't like. So we're gonna go ahead and taste a bunch more before I come back to talk about the coffees. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to taste all the coffee and write down anything that you can think of that you have found in the coffee notes. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the coffee notes and what flavor notes I found in them, and then reveal the coffee at the end. So if you're not ready for that, pause the video and come back when you are. All right, so for the first coffee, in the fragrance, I really found this one was a little bit easier for me, to be honest, than the second one. So the flavor notes came a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. I really started off with like raisin and molasses and some citrus notes in it. A little bit fermenty almost, but in a nice, pleasant, like sweetbread smell almost, like a sourdough, maybe a little bit hint in there. And then when we got it wet before the break, when I started brewing it, I still got raisin, a little bit more like raisin bran, so a little grainy in there. And I got some grapefruit too, almost like a caramelized grapefruit. So it was kind of sweet, but still had that citrus. It was really nice. And when we broke the coffee, still got raisin. I got raisin all the way through. It's just one of those things for me. A little bit of molasses. I got some more honey than molasses after the break. and some milk chocolate and maybe some mandarins. So maybe some chocolate covered mandarins or something. That sounds really good. And when we tasted it, I started tasting like a raisin pudding or like a rice raisin pudding. So subtly sweet, but with that raisin and those spices a little bit, kind of warming almost, a little bit of milk chocolate. Still had that citrus coming through, which was really nice, but not a harsh citrus, a nice like grapefruit with some sugar on top or something. So I really enjoyed that. The aftertaste lingered for me, but it wasn't a bad lingering. It was just it was sharp, but not in a bad way. So it was very pronounced and noticeable, and almost a little bit sour. So I definitely found this coffee on the higher acidity side of things. But not in an unpleasant way, at least for me personally. And then the body I found was pretty smooth. It wasn't, it was kind of in the middle for me, a little maybe medium low. So on that side, not too heavy, but not super light. It wasn't super tea-like, but nice medium bodied coffee. The second one I found in the dry was a little bit harder for me. It definitely was a little bit darker roasted, so I think part of that is why it was a little bit hard to come up with some of these words. This one is a more roasted coffee. I got hazelnut and some grains and some malt in there, and a little bit of brown sugar in the dry, just a hint of it. And then when we started to brew it, I still got some hazelnuts and some grains that kind of came through, pulled through the whole way, and a little bit of milk chocolate almost. It was very subtle in the background for me though. Like I said, I was struggling on this one a little bit more. The toasty, roasty notes came through more clearly for me. And after we broke the coffee, I still got the toast and the grains. I got almost like a little bit of a nutmeg spice in the background, and some caramel. And then I got a whiff of like a jasmine or a floral scent, but it was just a hint in the background. When I tasted it, there was like walnut and brown sugar coming through, and maybe some chocolate. I actually couldn't decide if I thought it was more dark chocolate or milk chocolate, so I'll let you be the judge if you came up with either of those. And I got a little bit of apricot in there too in the background. I thought that this lingered a little bit, but not as long as the first one. So it was a little bit of a quicker there and gone again. And nothing really pulled through in the lingering for me, not a specific flavor. The acidity I found was middle of the road, and the body was also middle of the road for me. So the acidity was definitely less for me than the first coffee, and the body was just kind of in the middle, a nice round smooth cup of coffee. I enjoyed both of these, but I think I really liked number one more on the cupping table because it was really fun for me to come up with the flavors that were a lot more noticeable for me. So the big reveal, the first one is our light roasted Kenyan. So it's a light to medium roast. It is excellent on its own as an everyday cup of coffee, but we do love to blend it in a lot of things too. So we have it blended in a few different blends. So currently, we either use the Kenyan or the Tanzanian, typically in our, it's electric. And then we also use it in our espresso blend, either the Kenyan or the Tanzanian, depending on availability that we have. They are different, but they all are very similar in their citrus and acidic notes and things like that. So they are excellent coffees, but this one was really fun to get. Those raisins and just very fun flavor notes for me. So the second one is our Costa Rican, and this one we roast more medium. And this one is also found in our espresso blend, as well as in our black gold. And I think there's one other one that I'm blanking at the moment. But if you go to our website, you can find in the blends which ones are blended together. But this one is also excellent. It kind of brings a little bit of those nutty notes out in the espresso blend. And it is a really good everyday drinker too. So you can get either of these on our website as single origins, the Kenyan or the Costa Rican. You can also find them in some of our blends. So make sure you look through those and see which ones you like. If you liked these, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you got some of the same flavors or if they were completely different from mine. That's okay, but I would love to hear what notes that you guys are getting, what you're finding, what you're enjoying, what you're not. Feel free to leave comments down below and let me know. Or you can also email us on our website, which I will link down below. If you want to send this to a friend and have them do the cupping kits with you too, you can go ahead and do that. You can find more of our cupping kits right on our website. And I look forward to coming back and cupping with you again next time for set number 4 next time. So we're rolling right through these. I can't wait to hear which ones are your favorite in the end. And we're going to start adding some at some point too, which I will keep you apprised of. So thanks for cupping with us today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.